have a little pull bar talk tonight, you know, so this one's going to probably be highly controversial because everybody has an opinion, and I suppose mine's no different than yours. So, you know, it's the pull bar is maybe kind of a tricky situation. So everybody's probably got a little bit different experiences. What's happened with them when they've done different things on the car, and a lot of times that's it in a nutshell, but a lot of times we cover the same basis. The pull bar is not as widely exposed as other parts of our car. Okay, so it's probably in the process of getting hoarded up pretty quick. You know, when you have really high dollar pieces that function or do the same thing as a part a third of the price, that's, you know, that turned it into the shock market, you know. So what we're trying to do here is not do that. What we're trying to do is teach you something about something that you don't know, so you can make a good qualified opinion, you know. So you go out and you buy what you feel like's right for the car, based on knowledge, not based on some other hype somebody else has sold you on or try to get you to believe. So while we're messing around a little bit, this brake bracket was up here because of a paint issue, but this right here is a really good piece. It's a one-piece brake bracket. We're a little thicker on the mounting, so it keeps the flex out of it. Our opening here is machined and it's very tight, and in some cases you may have to file this a little to get it to fit the caliper. Okay, when the caliper drops in here and moves back and forth like this, then the load from the caliper goes to the bolts, which flexes the part more. When the caliper's in here tight and can't move, then the load stays off the bolt and it comes to the bracket, and it's just distributed through the bracket much better than when it's isolated to the bolts. Okay, this one also has a T-gib cut in it that allows, and there's a little T-pin that comes with it and allows you to slide it back and forth. So like once you get it set, you know, and then you realize, oh man, I could have moved that over just a 1/16 of an inch, would have been better. This allows you to move it. And then you set your set screw, you tighten your stuff, set your set screw. This has been a very good piece. Very good piece. Also new last year was a 23 series threaded body shock. This is a steel shock. It's a 20 series, you know, so with the threads it's a 23 series. You can get a 5-inch cups for it, or you can get a 2.5-inch cup for it. So this is something new. This is also laying on the counter because it was returned because I made them the wrong size. They were supposed to be 9 inchers and I made them 7 inchers. So I do have 2 threaded body shocks if somebody's interested. One for right front, one for the left front. Right front 1-100 and the left front 1-50. 2 good shocks. It'd be not what I would probably recommend for a crate late model, but you know, for sportsman class or some kind of modified class where you could run a coil over, that'd be a cool deal. Or if you just want to have threads on there, try to keep the shop cooler, whatever your reason is. But them 2 are there if somebody's interested. Pull bars. Okay, so I often say there's not much magic in a pull bar. And I think there's more hype than magic. And I think when we get through the night, you'll start to see that too. You'll understand why I have that theory. Right now, there are some really cool looking pull bars on the market of really nice looking stuff. Multi-stage, cups, stops, biscuits, Belleville washers, springs, you know, like you're going to run progressive to a stop, a biscuit to a stop, to a biscuit to a stop, you know, some really neat stuff, but it becomes very complex. So it's like, you know, you better have somebody smart enough to understand them, and you better have some good equipment, because some of them biscuits are like this, you know, where they come with a concave washer and different degrees of concave washer to change the rate. And if you think it's just simple, like here's a chart, follow the chart, it gets much more complex. Okay, so a complex pull bar, I mean, like I said, they're really good looking pieces. You might need an engineering degree to, you might just pay to have an engineer with you to having adjust the thing. Now, my difference between, you know, how I feel about the pull bar and what some people do is, I'm not too sure that you need to be out there adjusting on the pull bar like mad, you know. So if you can't get it set, you need to get it set, and then the pull bar should function as its own from there on out. Okay, so if it's not really doing that, if you got to make adjustments between a heat race and a feature to the pull bar is not either right or the car's not either right, because I just don't feel like, just because that track's going to slick off, and we'll cover that, I just don't feel like, you know, you have to, you know, really make that much adjustments. I knew a guy one time where he might change 3 or 4 pull bars a night, and he won a lot of races doing it, won a lot of races in his career, but I don't think the pull bar deal was making it or breaking it for him, you know. So we're going to start out, we're going to talk about location. And I do feel, you know, this is one of 100 brackets that can be bought, you know, for top of rear end. This one's a quick change one. We're going to modify and build some for a quick change, you know, the pull bar location, 90-10 location. The standard height on this is, you know, been in that 12 to 14 inch deal. It's been pretty common. It's more like 12.5 to 14. It's been pretty common. That part hasn't changed so much. Really what changed, this might be about center line of the axle, okay? So when you put your pinion angle in, that doesn't really swing the center line out that far, okay? So, you know, a lot of times when you get under your car and you look and you go, yeah, I'm 3 inches in front, really when you put, you know, measurement to it, you find out you're not 3 inches in front, you're closer to 1 3/4 inches. So the location, to me, that's important is forward and aft of the rear end, okay? So in different parts of the country, I think you can afford to be behind the rear end, okay? But what we're going to talk about tonight is mainly a slick track environment, okay? So we're not talking about loading up a cushion, okay? We're not talking about 3 inches of pull on a 1200 AFCO spring. You know, we're not talking, because the majority of the country does not have that type of racetrack to race on, okay? And the guys that do, I think they have a lot of fun racing there, but the guys that do are generally well educated in how to make their car go forward in that kind of moisture, okay? It's the guys in the slick that are racing on dirty racetracks that I feel like struggle. But we'll cover in front, center, and behind on the location, okay? So back in the day, we used to get a pull bar and put it in the car, and we had 3 inches of pull all the time. And we could change springs, you know, some biscuit stuff, and we had 3 inches or more pull, okay? And the factor is because we were mounted behind, about 3 inches behind or 2.5 inches behind center of the axle, okay? When you're mounted back here, the pull amount becomes mechanical, okay? It's not how much grip does the racetrack make, okay? It becomes mechanical. The car goes up on the bars, the steers, and it drops out, and it will pull 3 inches, 2.5 inches. So you get a lot of pull behind, okay? When you're in center, so this pull back here dictates load to the tire, okay? In center, it's kind of iffy. So I feel like it requires moisture to run centered up on the axle, okay? Still going to dictate what the tire sees, Okay, what I mean by that is when you pull a 1,000-pound spring 3 inches, you got 3,000 pounds of load that's going to the tire. Now, if the tire can handle it or not, the car don't care. It's sending it. So this creates load, sends it to the tire. This is working right in the middle. Okay. Now, when we're 2.5 inches in front, this is more dictated by the racetrack and the tire. So if you got a good tire, it will make more pull. Okay. And it'll send that load to the tire. Okay. But when it's a bad racetrack, it doesn't make as much pull. Okay. So when you're in front, a lot of times I don't feel like that's the old wow factor. Okay, so a guy that's got a biscuit or a pull bar setup and he's behind in moisture, there's nights that it's really, really good. And then there's nights it sucks because you have to baby the throttle all the time. Okay, when you're in front, I think you are much better as far as you don't have to baby the throttle so much. And there's nights the car is going to be good, I mean better than good, and there's nights the car is going to be okay. But night after night, I feel like the location in front gives you a better chance to go out there and race and not blow the tires off. Okay, so we had a situation where we had 2010 GRT, and we were 3 inches behind, and pretty much a 350 small block out of somebody's truck motor, and the kid was blowing the tires off in hot laps. Okay, well, it wasn't because his brother's wore out tires were that good, or his 350 cubic inch motor was making all that power. It's because he had his pull bar behind, and when he put the car on the bars, everything was free enough to get the car up on the bars and in pull position, and as soon as it loaded the tires, it spun them. So we maybe had some conversation about that here, or, it was like, but the tires weren't good enough, the motor wasn't good enough, the car, there was nothing wrong with the car, but the tires and the motor weren't big enough to hook the car up that hard. That's what I'm trying to say. Mechanically, it happened. In front, it's dictated by the racetrack and the tire. So I feel like night after night, you go out, you stand a better chance with your pull bar mounted in front. And if you look at a lot of cars that are in the slick environment, IMCA cars on a hard tire, most of them are mounted in front, and that's why. So I do feel like that's the best location. Okay, bar angle versus not bar angle. Bar angle gives you drive. Flatten it out, takes away your drive. Okay, so you kind of see a trend where in the crate deal where guys are going flatter. They may put the car up in posture and the bar be fairly flat. Okay, because they're not trying to create more drive. They're trying to create an environment that allows the car to turn. Okay, so more pull. This ain't like old donut. It ain't more power, baby. More pull doesn't always make the car better. More pull bar doesn't always make the car better. Okay, this is something else I want to clear up. The pull bar isn't going to make more load or more grip at the tire or more drive than your car or your race tire or your racetrack is capable of handling. It's not going to happen. So if your racetrack is slick and dirty and you're going to put 3,000 pounds of load to it, guaranteed the tires are going to spin. So it's not like, that's why I say there's no magic in it. It's not going to make your car better than your car can be. Okay? It's literally, if you've got it loaded up, it's going to make that type of car worse than the car can be because the car can't handle that type of load. Okay? That's why you see guys have migrated away from it. Okay? So, next on my list was the rate, spring rate. So we'll kind of cover biscuits versus springs, okay? So, and kind of slide through the history. So when we first started, we had a Ford strut biscuit here. We had a spring here, by 1,000, 1,100 pound spring. And the pull bar, that brake biscuit was back here. We preloaded the spring 1/4 inch to half, and we went out and raced, okay? And we had, 450 horse, and the pull bar got around all right. It wasn't a solid rod, but it was close to it. And the tires were suitable to that. Okay, nowadays we're 750 horse trying to put down on the same tire, which only got more plastic in it than it had 20 years ago. And now we need a pull bar, not to make load, but to accept load. So we got a big old motor here with a lot of power and a little old tire over here with poor grip. Okay, and we need to marry those two together, and pull bar is what's going to do it. So that's when a biscuit style pull bar come into play, and people started liking them better. So really we went from like 1,100 pound spring to a progressive style spring, maybe a 1,600 or a 600 to 1,600 or a 900 to 1,300 type, 1,600 to 12, a 6 to 12 and a 9 to 13 was kind of the progressive. And then Johnny Sadoff did 1,000 to 2,000 or something spring, and that was, people liked that spring. And what we didn't understand at the time is what we needed was a progressive, a delay between the tire and the motor. Okay, so we have this big motor and it hits like this, and we have a tire that can't hit like this. The tire needs to come in, whoop, and the motor goes whoop. So that's what we got to do, is put them two together. Here come along the biscuit. And the biscuit was much better at doing it because it had a lot of squeeze factor to it. And even though you feel as a driver, oh man, this puts hitting the car. I get on the gas, loads tires up, we go forward. But actually, it puts a lot of delay in the tire. So I do like a biscuit, okay? And biscuits have been controversial because the better the biscuit, the shorter the life, okay? And then you're changing biscuits out all the time. People didn't want to do that. They become harder to get because of the demand. But this was one of, at the time, you know, this was one of the better biscuits. We didn't build this biscuit, but it literally was a very good biscuit. Its life was variable. It wasn't as long as what guys wanted, but the type of guy that wanted to run this was willing to change them out and pay for them, because this put drive in his car, because this put a lot of delay in the car. Okay, this particular manufacturer may or may not be in business today. I'm not going to say that, but I think he is, and his opinion may be different than mine. Okay, so when we did testing originally on biscuits, you know, what we learned about a biscuit was that. And this is why, like, when you call and you say, hey, can I check my pull bar on my smasher? And I say yes if it's like this. Okay, no if it's like this. And the reason why is, you'll have to figure that out on your own, I guess, but it don't work. Okay, and you can put this on your spring smasher and you can get a load number. Okay, and you can make changes, different biscuit cups, whatever you want to do, preload it. You can make changes and pull it again. You get a different number. Okay, and those two numbers are different. And if you made it stiffer, you should get a stiffer number. Okay, but that number you get doesn't indicate what's happening at the tire. It's just simply a number that's either heavier or lighter than your original number. Okay, so it's some data. It's not real good data, but it's some data. Okay, but that's why I'm not a big fan of that deal, because we don't have the equipment. There's not equipment available on the market to check a good biscuit the right way. Okay, some of the bump stops they've checked on dynos and stuff, and I suppose there is some equipment out there that could check a pull bar. Just, you know, it's $80,000 to $100,000, and I just don't know anybody that's got the money to spend on it. So that's that. So what we're looking for in a pull bar spring application, or this area right here, is something that's progressive and something that has life, longevity. Okay, we sell a 2-stage biscuit. It's a red and a blue. That biscuit will last you 30, 40, 50 nights. Okay, it kills down the wow factor, but it's very dependable. Okay, but guys don't get out and go, man, that's the best thing I ever had. Okay, that's the problem with the biscuit. If you want to put life in it, you kill the wow factor. If you want to have the wow factor, it kills life. So that is what it is. You know, we might do some other style biscuits, but this is why we created this piece, because this piece mimics what a biscuit pull bar is doing on the racetrack. Okay, so this particular application is a spring and an internal biscuit, and it's going to be kind of hard to see, but there's a biscuit just like this in this spring. Okay, and we have a 1,075 pound spring and a red biscuit. Okay, and we have a 1-inch gap with some preload set, about an 1/8 inch preload. So typically on our pull bars, we pull this down roughly till this gap's 1 inch. Okay, and that's where we set the preload on the spring. This particular item makes between 2,200 and 2,500 pounds of pull in the 1-inch 375 to 1-inch 400 range. Okay, this is suitable for a lot of tires, like an IMCA tire. Okay, it's also suitable for a UMP tire. So sometimes when we're UMP in the moisture, we'll shorten the preload up, run more on the biscuit than the spring. Okay, because the biscuit's going to create load very quick. By cutting down the length of travel that this particular piece does, then our pinion swing is far less. Okay, so then the migration of the roll center, and there's a lot going on there. It gets pretty complicated. We're not going to cover all that, but we minimize that. We minimize the amount of movement on the tire by minimizing the pinion swing. If you had a bent axle or something, this will help keep traction in the car. So our real goal here is to create some delay, create a load that the car can handle. So that kind of brings us to our next point, where we need to monitor our travel. Okay, so we need to really know how much travel is this thing getting. Okay, GoPro, you know, these things, sometimes this type of indicator takes a beating because the pull bar doesn't want to pull, you know, like completely straight. And it may try to pivot the cup a little bit depending on the setup. Okay, pull bars pull really very linear through the device. Okay, so this particular piece has a bearing in it, and because the load at this end is really not great, the bearing doesn't really wear out very often. Okay, so I mean, like us selling replacement bearings, that don't happen very often, but sometimes you can get a little load up here on these deals. Some guys have gone in and spent a lot of money on bearings or stuff up here, and I think some of it probably helps, and I think some of it's probably overkill, and I think a lot of it's hype. Okay, so if there's an issue on this end of the pull bar, you'll see it. It'll show up pretty quick, and you'll have to determine what's causing that issue. But the amount of load, how much travel am I getting? Okay, so on our website, it tells you, there's a section under the springs that tells you, you know, how much this pull bar makes, you know, from an inch on. Okay, so you need to determine, what can my tire hold? Can my tire hold more? Okay, if it can, then we need to start gradually moving the pull bar back in the car, which means we got to lengthen our length and maybe move. You know, that's why I think we're going to try to make this bracket with some adjustment this way, you know, this way in the bracket, and not so much this way, but, you know, have some adjustment this way where maybe we can move it over an inch, and, you know, start 2.5 and maybe work towards the 1.5 inch mark and see if we can, you know, put a little more load to the tire, you know, depending on what part of the country and how much moisture we have, how much grip the car wants to make. So travel, you know, spring rate, load, pretty critical. We're trying to make a load that's not overly high in the first part of the pool and builds towards the last part of the pool. Okay, you know, there's a 600 to 2,000 pound spring out there, which it really isn't 600, because by the time you put it in a pull bar and you get it tight enough to quit moving, it's already blown way past the 600 part. You know, the top end of that travel and that spring is pretty decent looking, you know. And guys tend to like that spring too, you know. So that is a good option if you're on that spring. We don't sell that spring, but we can probably get one for you. You know, a lot of places do sell that spring, but if you can't find one, call us. We'll get you one. This is just such a simple setup. Brake on this side, spring, biscuit. You know, the reason that we use this spring is because of the way it made rate in the first inch. Rate in the first inch always isn't the best thing in the world, and this particular spring was that way. It was a little soft on rate in the first inch, but it really runs out really close to 1,000 pounds, and that's kind of what we was looking for, you know. So, you know, neither the spring or the biscuit take a lot of abuse on this deal because neither one of them seeing a lot of travel. So the longevity's there, the wheel load's there. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot there. Now, one thing we didn't cover is length of bar. And whether you mount this end down or this end down, you know, I'm not a big, you know, the pull bar don't really care. You know, so if you want to mount the heavy end on the frame or whatever, most people don't because of room around the driver's box. You know, they have to mount like this at the rear end, the switch tube down here. But I do feel like a little bit of length, and now this might be a controversial part too. I feel like a little bit of length is good on the pull bar, okay? But it may make too much drive. Okay, so I like being in that 30, 32 inch area with pull bar. You know, maybe from 26 to 32. I feel like that's a really good length. And some of our racing in the past is where the car did make the most drive. Sometimes drive isn't always what you need. You know, if your car won't turn, you don't need more load. You don't need more drive. Okay, by increasing the load on this pull bar or making the bar have more drive isn't gonna make the car better. It's only gonna make the car tighter. Okay, or it might free it up with wheel span, but it's not gonna make the car turn on the front tires better. Okay, so load, we want, I feel like a little bit of angle, you know, 16 degrees. We want to be up about that 13, 14 inch on the rear end. It would be nice if we could tune the pull bar. If you could tune the pull bar forward and aft in the car a little bit, it's going to create problems with tube lengths and stuff because you're going to have to keep adding. But if a guy could do that a little bit, I think you could tune to your rate. Okay, so watch your travel indicator. Watch how much wheel load the car is accepting. Okay, monitor it, travel to a load number versus track condition. Okay, so if you're going to go out there and you're going to have, you know, crappy tires on tonight, it's probably not going to be a fair comparable. But if you keep your tire program pretty much heads up, you know, pretty average all the time, then monitor, you know, how much pull I got versus how good the racetrack is. Okay, so this is where it's going to be kind of a slippery slope. So we're going to try to get some numbers out there, but there is no universal, a 5 as a 5. Okay, but you need to come up with, you know, how much moisture is on the racetrack, because moisture on the racetrack is huge in both front grip and rear grip, huge. Okay, so, and we overlook that all the time. So we need to understand, really, did the track make me better or did the adjustment make me better? So not just the pull bar, but the car in general. Oh, the car in general, you know. So some nights, you know, I get this all the time. Guys are like, oh, my car was really good last week and sucked this week. You know, didn't do a thing to it. Okay, and a lot of times it's just moisture on the racetrack that makes the difference. So, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of what I got for a pull bar deal. Like I said, there's some really fancy, cool stuff out there that you can spend a lot of money on. I haven't seen yet where it just makes a car dominantly fast. Okay, you need a pull bar. This is a device. It's not going to put more traction in the car or more load in the car. it's going to put more timing between the motor and the car and the tire, and this allows the car to hook up better. Okay, so when you're doing this part better, the tire will hook up better, and it seems like I got more drive. That's where some of this sometimes comes into play. You put that in, boom, I got tons of drive. Well, you don't have any more drive than you had before. You don't have any more forward. You just applied it to the tire better. Okay, so you can overdo it, spin the tire. You can underdo it and complain. Must be getting some questions. For those people that send me friend requests, I've been trying to clean up my friends deal. So like, it's kind of time consuming. And I got some, accounts in there that don't have any. I mean, if you ain't got a profile picture and you ain't got any friends, you're getting deleted. So I'm trying to make room for people that want to learn, try to, for customers. So like today, I mean, as soon as I post, we was going to do a video, I got like 20 friend requests, and I clicked on them until I ran out of space. So it says I got 3 to go, but it won't let me add any more. So if you're sending friend requests, I'm sorry, but we'll try to clean it up. Did anybody have any questions?
Jeff Nelson said, why not just run a lift arm? Seems so much easier to adjust the chain or shock adjuster. Yes or no? But Mitchell answered him and said you can't run a lift arm in IMCA.
That's correct. You can't run a lift arm. But I do feel like if we could go back in time and then do this right, we put a lift arm in a modified and a pull bar in a late model. And we don't have the tire to handle this. And everybody thinks, oh, lift arm. Lift arm does not make more drive. Absolutely not. Okay. The late model guys struggle with load numbers and drive in a lift arm. Okay. Ideally perfect for a modified because the tire's so small. That's why we have stuff like this, because we're trying to make more load than the conventional shock and spring can. So was there another question, or somebody smile?
Dan Wheeler said, can he stay on your friends list?
Yeah.
Well, they can go to BSB Manufacturing though and like that page.
Yes, you can go to that page.
That is unlimited.
And I'm going to try to share the videos to both of those pages, my page and BSB's page, okay? And then I'm going to try to upload them to our YouTube page. So I don't know if I'm the only one out there that screwed up that whole YouTube deal, but during the process of getting different phones, we've always been a Yahoo Mail type people, and we have multiple Gmail accounts, and I don't know, that deal's screwed up, that Google deal. But so I've got multiple YouTube accounts, and I've been trying to delete them things. So right now, the YouTube account I'm uploading to is J Neal. So I'll try to maybe post something or something. I'll try to get that out there, but sometimes it might be easier to watch on YouTube.
Chad Smith said, have you ever tested uphill angle to the front?
Yeah, not extensively, by accident, and it was very good. The car had a slider mount in it, and it went, where the heck is Chad from?
I don't know.
Chad, where are you from? Text that in there. You got to be from down south. But yes, the car had a slider mount on it, and the mount come loose, and it went clear to the deck, and it got stuck up there, and amazingly, the car was very good. Okay, so this leads me to a really good point. Okay, and you guys, every racer out there has had a situation just like that.
He's from Ohio, mid-Ohio
okay.
Valley region.
And that mid-Ohio area is kind of slicked off, And I think over there, like you get in that Illinois, Indiana area, and you're running some of them cushion tracks, I think you can be like behind on the mounting, okay? In that Ohio area, I think you got to start migrating towards the center, But you go, like Mississippi and West, you better be in front. Texas, Mississippi, Georgia, you probably better be in front, And it's just that It's just that Indiana, Illinois is heading towards Ohio. And the further you get, Pennsylvania, New York, you better be towards the front, you know. But yes, when something happens in your race car and you get out and shock falls off, pull bar moves to the top, something happens and your car gets better, 3 inches of toe, you better ask why. That's the question, why? And if you don't understand why, you better find somebody that can explain it to you, because why is the answer, okay? And it's given to you from time to time, okay? Just because we've been running downhill angle on the pull bar since day one doesn't mean that's what we're supposed to be doing, okay? The guys that started this stuff necessarily didn't have all the answers, okay? But what we tend to do is we tend to, once we try something, tried it one night, didn't like it, don't go back to it. I got my data and it sucks. And even though the environment around me changes, my results for that experiment still suck. So if you've done something you didn't like it 10 years ago, it pays to revisit it. Oop, did you lose me?
Mm-hmm. I did. I flipped it accidentally.
Well, that might be the end of that.
No, it's still on there.
Oh, so how'd you lose us?
I flipped it. There we go.
Oh, you turned it around.
Oh, goodness.
I know, I hate that.
It's still on.
I hate that.
I was trying to find the...
Yeah, you gotta be careful. I hate that when it gets turned around.
Okay, well, Paul Harper, yeah, he said, what about the front pull bar location, side to side to add drive?
You know, I don't think it works. That's my opinion. I don't think it works. Sometimes when you do something like that and you go out and race and you think, man, the car was good. And plenty of guys have tried that deal. And I kind of got to go back. Oh.
That's our dog.
I thought
he has his toy.
You go back to, I don't want them cats got in here. I stepped on him or something. It's like, you go back to some stuff we did on late model. Okay, back in the day, GRT made a left side mounted lift arm, but it crossed the drive shaft and went back to the same spot. Absolutely did nothing for the car. Okay, but you move the front of the lift arm and it makes a lot of difference. Okay, likewise on a pull bar, you move the back of the pull bar side to side, much more responsive. Okay, you move the front. The problem I feel like with moving the front, it doesn't load the right front tire. That's hokey. Think about it. What are we doing? We're pulling load this way, not pushing load that way. Okay, so we're not loading the right front tire, we're unloading the right front tire. So you want to get tight on entry, I feel like go unload the right front tire. Okay, this is why we don't put the pull bar clear up next to the motor, because we're already pulling weight off the front of the car. Okay, our little 8-inch tire can't handle a lot more weight transfer. Okay, so I don't feel like, I feel like you got to balance it between pull and speed. Okay, and you got to understand drive is not going to beat momentum unless you're racing on them little racetracks. Okay, but if you're out there on a little bit of momentum, or you're on a 3/8 mile racetrack and you want to race somebody off the corner, the track better dictate that, because you're going to get beat doing it, because somebody's going to motor you on momentum. It's too easy to do, and drive's too hard to make, and it's too big of a variable. You know, if the racetrack's got moisture every night, drive's going to work. But if you're the normal racetrack, like I feel like we got maybe more moisture than we've had in our tracks, but if it dries off, you're going to struggle. Okay, so moving the front of the pull bar, I don't think is effective as moving the rear of the pull bar. Okay, back to that lift arm deal. Yes, we should have a lift arm in a modified. It would kill a ton of drive. And if all modifieds had to have a lift arm, we would talk less about drive and more about momentum.
Mitchell asks, does different driving styles go better with either a biscuit bar or a spring bar? Like if someone is hard on the gas and drives the car harder in the corner.
Okay, so let's say you kind of swap the throttle a little bit, you know, like you're really turning off the gas, boom, 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 a Biscuit Bar is probably going to be better, because a Biscuit Bar, depending on the biscuit, is going to allow for more delay between the tire and the motor, and that's really what we're looking for. Okay, so think of it this way: traction control. Okay? The cheap version, you know, a couple $100 buys you traction control. This is what you're trying to do: control traction. Okay, so we're trying to put control between the motor and the tire, traction control. So I don't know that PullBar was maybe the proper name. This is a traction device. It's trying to maintain as much traction possible in your car. That's what we're really trying to do. A Biscuit is going to do that. It's going to do that better than a straight rate spring. This Biscuit spring combination will help in doing that too. You know, all them multi-stage biscuits, that's the problem, you know, with a multi-stage biscuit deal is, you know, is it creating enough load? Is it not creating enough load? You know, it just becomes too complicated. Stuff like this is simple. I know it looks like the same PullBar we've had for 30 years, but it works. It works well. It works better than well. It just doesn't come with a lot of hype, you know, so.
Wayne asks, will this work on a Dirtworks 8?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes, I would say yes. You know, the Dirtworks cars in the 8s were probably mounted behind. So you may want to, you know, if you're on a 9-inch Ford rear end, you may want to be changing brackets on the rear end or welding to them or something to get the PullBar forward in the car. Okay, because just because that's what we did back when DW8s. DW8's a very good car. And there's still cars being made based off of DW8. So, you know, just because that's what we did back then doesn't mean that it's going to work competitively now because it was competitive then. The car is competitive. PullBar location may need to be changed.
Jeff Festerling asked how much lateral movement in the rear would be a noticeable change.
Oh, on the, like the PullBar, like if we're moving probably an inch, you know, so somewhere in there you're going to find where the best pull, which would be the most amount of pull. Okay, so let's say you're 3 inches forward and there's nights that are good, but over 30 nights we got 7 good nights. Okay, well we want to increase that 7 good nights because there was more than 7 nights where the moisture was better on the racetrack. Okay, so PullBar, if we move the PullBar back a little, we could maybe take that out to, you know, 15 nights, 18 nights, where the car is really, really good or really good, and the other 15 nights, the car is, you know, maybe the driver doesn't get out of the car and go, man, that thing put me back in the seat every lap, but it might be better than your competitors because they got a lot of wheel spin involved. You know, there's not hooking up as well.
Brian Powell, what about a 90-10 running beside the PullBar on the same angle instead of uphill above the PullBar?
Very good answer. Very good question. Very good question. Not an answer yet. But I think that is ideal because what that 90-10 shock I feel like needs to do is control the spring load of this PullBar. Okay? So if there's nothing on here to control this, okay, and what's going to happen is we're going to put load in it. And this is another reason why I like the spring biscuit, okay, because we're going to put maximum 3/8 of load in that biscuit, okay. So when we cross something on the racetrack that doesn't have the grip level to hold the load in the car, it's going to give up your PullBar spring. And when it does, we hope that it only gives up the biscuit, okay. So it gives up the 3/8 here, which means, you know, the PullBar, the car's not going wah 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 wah. It's not doing this. So if you watch them videos on YouTube, that old thing, PullBar's back there, you know, and even when it gets to pull, it sets back there and bounces. Okay, well, all that movement is creating a lot of work for the right rear tire. Okay, and depending on what you got going on that right rear tire, spring, shock, rebound, and all that stuff, depends on how well it works. If you're loading that thing into the cushion, okay, if we can slow down all that wah-wah motion of the PullBar with a shock, and I feel like when it runs parallel, much, much simpler to do. The ratio is closer to the same than when it's, mounted in this thing. Okay, so somebody come up with a rule that said that 9010 has to be mounted above the pull bar, and I don't remember if it was USRA or IMCA or UMP, has to be mounted above the pull bar. Okay, well, I feel like what they're saying is it needs to be mounted up here like it normally has been. Okay, but what they said is it needs to be mounted above the pull bar, which means here, not to the side, but above the pull bar. Okay, I still think that's a much better way of doing it. 9010 shocks, that's a name. That's not, that number doesn't really apply. If you look at 9010s, most people that run 9010s run a bad 9010. So a lot of times our valving, like if you want just a straight 9010, it's only going to be about a 5-valve shock. We build what we call a top shock, which has valving to try to control the pull bar spring. So yes, running it parallel, we have an extension that'll screw onto a BSB shock that'll screw into a 5/8 swedge tube. Okay, so it's metric to 5/8 fine thread, so you can run that shock parallel to the pull bar. It's like $20 or something. But it does only, it does only fit ours, and a bill sting. It fit a bill sting, and then you guys would have to drill and tap them out if you wanted for something else.
Derek Losh said, what are your thoughts on instant center location and how the pull bar can be used to transfer weight front to rear? Also, is there a relationship between the pull bar and the upper right rear 4-bar?
Okay, so let's do the instant center deal. The instant center, like if you get on and you look up some of the instant center stuff, forward to back in the car, it's if you're, I'm doing this off bad memory. If you're 56% rear, we'll say, and you're a 108 wheelbase, and I think this is right, I don't really remember, but you're coming off the front wheels, and this is why instant center is important. Okay, it's important to know where that weight's in the car. My question to you guys is, are you doing anything about it? Because when your instant center is back in the car, so the math they give you on it is basically the instant center is 56 inches. If you're 56% rear, it's 56 inches behind center line of the front tires. Okay, now that doesn't make any sense to me when you're on 108-inch wheelbase. Okay, so I think like in some of the examples they show the car on a 100-inch wheelbase. On a 56% rear means from the front tires back it's 56 inches. Okay, I'm not buying all that either because of weight placement, motor offset. Okay, so the instant center forward and aft, side to side is the point in which you put the car on and it balances. Okay, that's your instant roll center. Typically that range is about shoulder height in the car and about where the driver sits, like that. Okay, when your mount goes in front of that, you're pulling weight off the front of the car easier. Okay, so you need to in a car, you need to understand this too. Percentage is not a number. It's a representation of a number. So 56 is not an amount of weight. It's a representation of amount of weight. Okay? So when I say I'm 56% rear and I'm 2,200 pound car, well, that's not the same as 56% rear on a 2,800 pound car. Okay? But a lot of times we pretend as it is, okay, but that's not the truth. Okay, even though we may understand that, you go, duh, I get that, but we still just blow it right on off. We just go on down the road. So these cars are getting lighter. We do need to pay attention to pull bar length. based on the weight of the car, okay? And we need to start to understand how this car got from 2,600 pounds to 2,450 with the driver. Okay, where did that weight come from, and how is that affecting our tire, positive and negative, and that'll determine whether it's a benefit or not. Okay, so we need to do that, because what I'm seeing, I got several customers that their cars weigh with driver, like 2,460 on a 2,450 minimum, which means that, the average guy, if he's 200 pounds, he might be kind of thinner, than, the average guy. But, let's say he's 200 pounds, he's out there on a 2,250 pound car. That's a light race car. Okay, so we gotta have enough, we gotta have enough weight in the car to make grip. So his second part of that question, pull bar to the right rear upper. I don't remember how it was all stated.
He said, is there a relationship between pull bar and the upper right rear forebar?
I'm sure there is, but that's going to be, if a guy's tuning that hard, he's way above the majority of us, So, he's probably had some kind of experience where he's moved bar around and it's changed his car. Okay, here again, could have been the pull bar, could have been the bar change, could have been the racetrack. I'm not tuning in that direction. I don't try to teach in that direction because it's just plumb out too complicated. So yes to the question, no to we're not doing it.
Craig Hansen said, so open motor with a guy that jumps on the throttle should use a biscuit? And is the pull bar in front you supposed to be the best of both worlds?
Yes, the pull bar in front I think is the best of both worlds. Okay. Which Hansen was that, Jeff?
Craig.
Craig. Hope you guys are doing good out there. Yes, the pull bar in front is the best of both worlds. I do believe. Okay. If for some reason they start putting a lot more moisture on them racetracks out there, then I think you could start migrating towards the middle. Okay. I don't really think you'll ever get to, be behind again. This type of biscuit spring combination, because I think you do maybe have a spring pull bar like this. You can upgrade your pull bar to this by buying the kit, It goes on a standard 7600 pull bar. This pull bar is very progressive. So we're trying to mimic this biscuit in this setup, but add life to it. So, and I feel like we've done that very well. So if you have this type of pull bar and you feel like it needs more drive number, then we need to mess with either maybe a little preload or rear end location.
Dwayne Cleveland asked, do you feel we need to run a top shock?
Hi, Dwayne. I haven't seen Dwayne in a while or talked to him. Yes. Are we? I don't feel like we are, I feel like the majority of cars right now don't have a top shock on, I feel like the majority of the cars that do have a 90-10 or a top shock, it's not on there for the right reasons. May even be impairing the car some in travel. So if you got one of the cars where it's like, I put on 6 different pull bars and all I ever get's an inch travel. Well, it could easily be in your 90-10, something wrong with the shock, or the shock placement just doesn't allow for travel. I do feel like a lot of the chassis manufacturers now have improved that location so it's not an issue. But I think we go back to the parallel shock, and its control over the pull bar becomes much simpler to comprehend, for all of us. So I think we can, say, how much am I giving up my spring? Like, let's say, let's say you enter, we'll make it simple. Let's say you enter and you pit on the infield, okay? And you come across the entry of 3 on the straightaway, not on the banking, okay? And every time you hit that spot on the racetrack, you give up your tires, okay? It's because the load, and at that point, let's say if you're deep on entry on the straightaway, on the long end of the straightaway, but let's say at that point, that's what we're trying to prevent, is giving up the tires, okay? But between entry and exit, or from the time you pick up the throttle to entry, there's 100 spots that you can give up the tires, okay? Whether you hear it or not, if you put a GoPro down there, you can a lot of times hear it on the throttle. The less we give up the spring, the more forward the car is going to have, because the less work the tire is going to have to do, okay? That load, or that movement of the pull bar, you know, pulling, releasing, generally doesn't affect the left rear tire, because nowadays, preload, big shock, it affects the right rear tire, okay? And the right rear tire is the one that has suffered for the last 25 years. So I think without running the 90-10, we're making the right rear suffer more.
Okay, and then we have one last question. Corey Trump says, can you discuss anti-squat advantages to be had in relationship to pull bar angle when car is in attitude in terms of a 3-linked clamped bracket car?
Okay. Now, I think that what makes this more complicated for this guy, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think he drives a Mod Light, okay? And Mod Lights tend to be in squat a lot, okay? And they're trying, not all of them.
I'll see if he says what he
But
drives.
A lot of them, you know, appear, you know, the short wheelbase and everything that's going on, I don't think helps in cars, but a lot of them appear that, you know, they're like light on the front tires, heavy on the rear, going down straightaway, okay? So this would be, you know, squat, anti-squat, squat. Okay?
Late model car with 3-link in rear.
Okay, okay. When your car, so I don't think that's the direction that you want to try to go, squat in the rear, okay? If you want to make a ton of drive, yes, that's going to make a ton of drive. If you got a 3-link car with a pull bar on a late model tire, I think you're going to have so much rear in the car that you're just going to have a lot of rear, okay? And the car's probably not going to want to turn very well unless you turn it with the rear tires, okay? But this is what we want to prevent. So back in the day, we used easy up shock, so we transferred that weight and we squatted in rear tires and we went, okay, we did that when we had leaf springs, okay, and we moved it right over to the 3-link cars, right over to the 4-bar cars. Okay, then the 4-bar cars started hiking the rear. But the truth of the matter is, here's your car. Whether it goes like this or it goes like this. This is the front, hiked in the rear, hiked in the front. Regardless of which way it goes, the weight transfer goes to the rear tires. So when your car goes up on the bars like this, weight goes to the rear tires. Okay? If it didn't, you'd never, ever be tight on entry in a 4-bar car. And we're tight on entry all the time. Because this is what you see. Front of the car, back of the car going down the straightaway. This is what you see. This is the way it is. Weight transfers to the rear tires. May not be that bad, but weight transfers to rear tires. The front tires are light. Okay? Wasn't such a big deal when we had a whole bunch of horsepower. Now we're on a 604 crate. We can get down there and turn left. We need them tires on the ground. And the car don't turn so well because we've transferred all the way to the rear. So, in my world, anti-squat 3-link late model with a pull bar, car would be like super tight, okay? If that's what it takes to make, you know, the car launch up off the corner, then that's what I would do. And it goes back to what we always preach, feed the car what the car wants, okay? Don't do what he's doing, don't do what he's doing, do what this car needs. This car, your driver, that's all that matters, you know? Just do what this car wants. Even if it's the weirdest thing you've ever done, if the car's happy doing it, if it goes down the straightaway, if it turns left when it gets there, and it's fast, you can't ask for anything better. Even though your setups may be really, really weird. Okay, why I say pull bars fast in the late model? because a guy here in Wichita used to have a two-seater. And 2 or 3 hours of racing this, giving rides on this two-seater, 3 hours after the race, on the same tires that this three-seater had on it last week with 3 hours on it. The car can still turn faster laps than them cars that won them features. So what I'm saying is, he had a two-seater with PullBar, and they would turn faster laps for 2 or 3 hours after the race than what typically won the race at that racetrack. You know, so I do think PullBar would be good for a late model. Tires are much better, can handle the load. Lift arm would be better for a modified. It's not what we're really doing. But if you want to try it, lift arm, don't expect to put a lift arm on it and make a lot of drive. That ain't gonna happen. Your car may get better because it's not so tight. You know, we're doing that. There's some guys in Wichita doing that, and I think their cars have gotten better. But it's not because they've got more forward, it's because they got more control. They're managing their tire loads better. They're spinning the tires less. The car is probably going forward better. But it's not because because the lift arm makes more forward drive. It manages the load better. This traction device, load, RPM, swing to tire, this is the connecting factor. This is what's going to balance that out. So it's why a crate motor. I did this one time, and Delbert told me, he said, man, that's the best explanation. You know, a crate motor goes wah, and an open motor goes wah wah. Okay, and that tire has to respond that quick. 3,000 RPM change. That's why a crate motor works so well, because the tire likes to go wah. It don't like that screaming eagle. So PullBar has to make up for it. You know, many ways to skin a cat. Don't need to spend a ton of money doing it. Okay, don't expect to buy one of them and turn your world around. Okay, because that's not going to happen. You can spend all the money in the world, still not going to turn your world around.
We'll do one more.
Okay.
Paul Harper says, on the rear, should it be mounted directly over drive line or left or right?
Typically, center of the pinion, center of the drive shaft is not a bad place to be. Okay, and some cars respond better than others. Okay, so moving it to the left definitely tighten the car up. Okay, and I've seen cars, and I don't think he would mind. Jesse Stovall had a car at Wheatland, Missouri, and I mean, that car was set on the right rear tire, and at Wheatland, you're standing in that gate over there so you can see them coming at you. And that car, I mean, that tire rolled over. I mean, he was eating the Hoosier up on the side of that tire, and then you just see him pick throttle up, and that car just stand up. I mean, it looked like a top fuel dragster. I mean, it just stand right up on the tire, and then he'd go nowhere. I mean, it's like, here he's coming, he's you know, and then boom, nowhere. And I asked him one time, you know, what he did to fix it, and he said, well, he had to move the PullBar to the left. And because, you know, they put the car together pretty quick and all this and that, you know, and this was a long time ago. But the PullBar location wasn't the same as the previous car, and anyway, they needed to move the PullBar to the left and fix a lot of the problems. So I think if you get it too far to the right, it'll pull the car up off the tire. If you're exiting straight like this, no problem, but if you're exiting the corner and you got that lateral force going and it's pushing out as you're going forward, you've got to keep that right rear tire under you. That's why we run rebound on the right rear, because as soon as you pick the throttle up on a 3-lane, 4-lane car, guess which direction the car is going? Up. Okay, just because the body rolls over like this does not mean the spring is not releasing, because it is. Watch the videos. The car will go up, the body rolls over it. What we see on from the track photographer isn't really what 100% happened with the car. Okay, spring's releasing. You can't lose that load on the right rear, or that tire will stand up and it'll break. Moving the PullBar to the right tends to do that. Seems like sometimes moving the PullBar to the left tends to make them tighter than they want to be. Okay, so if you can't turn on the front tires, then don't make the rears tight. It's a balancing act between the front and the rear. When the car gets balanced, well, you can go anywhere you want. Big track, 3/8, quarter mile, and in your position, in that type of deal where he's from, I think they Friday night at Crawford County might be a small 3/8, Tri-State big 3/8, and there's enough difference between them tracks that a car that's not balanced well will require tuning. A car that's balanced well I think you can roll with both tracks and be really, really good. So, pull bar stuff. Figure it out. You know, ask questions. You know, if you don't understand, ask questions. You know, the old statement, 2 minds create a third. Okay, so 2 minds are better than 1. Okay, so that's how you solve issues. Come up with some stuff last night out of this world, because 2 minds got together on the phone and resolved an issue in the car. Okay, simple fix that increased grip levels a ton. Okay, 2 minds are better than 1. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, doesn't make me right or wrong. It just makes you and me have different experiences. Okay, so I've heard things and I thought that'll work, and I found out later that works. Okay, but I didn't apply it right, so that's why it never worked for me. So I can't say everybody's going to agree with everything I said, and that's fine. But think about it, evaluate it, and then do what your car needs. Do what's best for your car. Okay, always say it's got to turn on the front tires, got to drive on the rear tires, and if you're not turning, you don't need to be tighter. Okay, so if you need something, call us 620-326-3152. Me or Yvette or whoever's here will get you helped out. Facebook, you know, J-Neil, BSB Manufacturing. I've been slowly, I'm sorry and I apologize, making improvements to the website, bsbgofast.com. With some help from my buddy, I think we're going to get, and I need to call him again, and I think we're going to get that deal lined out. The team page, we have a BSB team page on Facebook, but we're going to do a website to upload and download setups and do the whole team thing. But, you know, so there's email, bsb@yahoo.com. Send us an email.
BSBMFG.
Yes. Thank you.
At Yahoo.
Okay, what she said, she's right.
BSBMFG@yahoo.com.
Yeah. We will get you an answer. It may take a little time. And sometimes, just before I got on the phone, guy called, wanted to know his valving, wanted to know which shocks are on. And the simple answer was, I highlighted it, I told him, I highlighted it, I took a picture of it, and I texted to him. So now he has a copy of it, you know. And that's simple as pie, and it works really, really well. Okay, so we can do them things. So if you got any questions, let me know. And if you want to do some different stuff on videos, you know, message me or text me. I did like Corey's idea. Several years ago, we did a tech manual for shocks. Okay, and if you read it today, you know, it's kind of cheesy, but you know, it needs to be way improved. Okay, and I'm working on that stuff, so I think that's a great idea. And one I think I want to try to pursue, Corey, because I think it'd be good for people, you know, and I think it can go beyond just shocks. But, you know, explain some pull bar stuff, explain some left rear stuff. You know, I keep getting calls about guys that are preloading left rear springs and they're on a 200 and they're struggling with a car. You cannot preload a 200-pound spring on the left rear and have it be effective. Okay, you can do it. They're doing it, but they don't like it when they do it. 175, 150, 175, 200, they're just too stiff. You can't get what you need to be doing. It's too stiff of a final spring, and it's hard to explain, but the frequency in the spring is too stiff. Tire don't like it. You can't preload them. So the tech book, you know, helped to explain some of that. You know, I'm going to need some help from you guys because it's late in the year. There's going to be some documentation and pictures that's going to be needed if we try to pursue that. So what I got now is mostly animated, and I think would be fine, but I do think we want to try to do that. I think it'd be a good book where you can go back and review later. So I think it'd be good information for you. So Thanks, guys. See you next week. Take care. Be careful. Hey, good luck to all of our buddies out in Vegas. You guys be safe out there. Don't do anything crazy. Race hard, race good, go fast. God bless you, and we'll see you next week.